Hey everybody, Brian Von Vier here. I got something real special for you today. What's your weird DM confession? I know they're never gonna see it, and I know technically it's a waste of effort, but for me, preparing all these scenarios and world building is just so fun. And besides, if they do happen to wander a direction I didn't initially expect, I've got content ready for them. My players might never see 75% of the stuff I make, from adventures to world building to custom systems. I have a problem, and I'm proud of it. I really care about my players' characters. I think I have a good poker face about it, and I'm happy to play villains with integrity. Like, I have one player who is considering a villain arc that he has more than earned through his actions, and it would really break my heart if he went that way. But it would definitely make for a great story. Basically speaking, if the players are the stars of our own little Netflix series, I'm their biggest fanboy, and they will never know. I secretly have a little resentment to players who do not want a backstory. I love planning connections to characters' backstories, making a well-thought-out web of how this band of merry adventurers weren't just brought together by fate or chance, but their histories sort of brought about the moment and the conflict with the main antagonist. I have nothing against players who just want to show up and roll dice and not think about character stuff. But, generally speaking, I have one or two players at the table where I think more about their character's backstory than they do. Also, across the board, my players' favorite NPCs usually begin as a vague concept that they iterate on for me when speculating about their motives. Everyone in my game consistently has a favorite antagonist NPC, and my notes from my last session with him was literally Strahd for the memes plus GLaDOS. And the favorite overpowered NPC was Gnome bouncing on his staff as a pogo stick with big hat, low gain wizard hat sovereign glued to his head. Smokes a lot of equivalent of fantasy Mara J. I make 90% of it up, on the fly. My players think I spend hours doing prep work, when my only real prep is just a few D100 tables and a lot of yes and... Like the last one, I barely prep at all. I'll do brainstorming at most. Everything else I'm making up then and there and writing it down so I don't forget what shit I just made up. That I would love to actually be a player one day, but it never seems to happen. I always end up being the DM. That one day I will create a DM overgame that fuses all the factions that the PCs have both met, will meet, and never meet to generate a behind-the-scenes political intrigue based on the player's actions, as well as other inputs yet to be decided. I play on Discord with voice only. I roll real dice and trust my players to roll their real dice with the note that they remember failing can be just as fun as succeeding. To maintain things in my brain, I assign a different colored dice to each party member when I roll against them. I crit on one guy all the time. I swear, I'm not doing it on purpose. I even swapped which dice was his, and the new dice started critting instead. My dice just want him to die, so I'm sorry. I've fudged more rolls against him than anyone else just because my dice seemingly hate him. Well, I overprep too. I have a really chill group, and I also love giving them creative freedom. My biggest thing, though, is that I love to allow my players to get really powerful through custom items and mechanics for my worlds that I create, and also things that they come up with on their own. They feel good with the power, and the fights we've had throughout this campaign have been epic. I tweak the fights, of course, based on how powerful they've become, and I found a great balance in that it's not easy, and they enjoy having the power while also having challenging fights. Then there's also the times where I'll throw a hack and slash with some trash mobs every now and then, and they love blowing through the low-level stuff and going boss mode. I don't always make concrete solutions for traps or puzzles. Sometimes they try such clever things, and I'm just like, with a grinding of gears and clicks, it opens. They are often surprised, and so am I. I fudge rolls. A lot. Almost always in the party's favor, of course. I've had a lot of mixed skill parties, and they get discouraged easy. Another one is that I use the books kind of like a dictionary. I look up stuff that I need and have never read a single full section of any book. I've been DMing for almost 20 years that way. Now I'm the opposite. I think about the game and where the story is going a fair amount during the week, but my actual prep time is like an hour before the session starts. Almost everything that happens in-game I am improvising off of, at best, a loose outline. And it always seems like the stuff players enjoy most, and that I get the most compliments about is the stuff I prepared the least. I spend far more time searching for music and art rather than encounter creation and brainstorming for stories. I get very particular ideas for the latter, and frequently struggle with finding the audio-visual means to present that content. I had a table of homebrewed STDs for the bard who wanted to be every bard stereotype ever. Knobrot, grundlepox, anal mite. Wait, anal mites? Hold on. What the? Mine is exactly the same. I have made an entire history of my homebrew world from the first age through to the fourth, current. And some things still technically apply to the party and are important, but most aren't. I've also written books that my players can find in libraries and read, which are a few short paragraphs that give the players inspiration upon reading. One includes a horror-ish style of dwarves that have dug through a secret underground world of evil creatures that stalk them, and the book is written like a diary format with a dwarf documenting everything. Also, there's one that talks about dragons and the one great one, Ulgrama, who killed a god and was taller than any mountain. Another one is about a plague which happened due to the big bad evil guy that almost wiped out all free folk across the world. Yeah, I'm a nerd. Hey, you're among other nerds here, though. We love you. I pour over hours of code and writing prompts for the Discord my players use. Hidden lore drops, hidden commands, major story arcs, massive Easter eggs, and countless ways to affect other parties' campaigns in real time at the table. It basically runs everything, and it basically builds the story around them as they interact with it, and for other players in other campaigns. It's absolutely mental how much time I spend on that thing when I'm prepping for a big session or a new batch of players. Playing on Roll20, one of my players puts gifs in his attack and spell macros. I tend to find it mildly annoying, as it takes up extra space in the chat log, and short looping gifs get annoying pretty quickly, especially when it's the same one over and over and over and over and over because it's something like the character does frequently, like their go-to attack cantrip. Then the other players learned how he did it and started copying him with their own gifs, and I hate everybody that has fun. I have a few that keep cropping up in my games. All the PCs in my game have plot armor. Ugh. My players would have to either explicitly tell me they wish to change characters, or otherwise something monumentally stupid to permanently die in my games. Even in situations where the characters do die, I typically leave a back door for them to come back shortly, typically with noticeable side effects though. In my last campaign, the final arc was the party traveling across the land to try and save one of the PC's souls from an evil god after they sold it to them to escape death when they were level 2 as an example. Now, I don't really do all that much note-taking myself. I keep a set of spark notes of what happened each session in the back of my mind and mooch off my best note-taking player when necessary. Somehow, I've not had any major plot holes happen yet to my knowledge, which is kind of miraculous in this case. I homebrew extensively. Now, this may not be a problem to some people. It's really not a problem for me, for instance. But of course, some purists would probably scream in horror at what I have done to some of the module campaigns, like Curse of Strahd or Descent into Avernus. Things like giving the Maid, Spectre, and Death House a personality the players could interact with, or making the two bridges in Elturel into spanners that absolutely hate each other, which are two minor examples of what I've done. My players all love keeping track of monster stats as they play. HP, AC types of attacks, that sort of stuff, they're all fairly new. Every 1 out of 20 encounters, I just make something they have seen before, which is slightly different. I did warn them that I would throw this little gimmick in on rare occasions, and they said to basically just do it. Here's an example though. I gave one kobold the undying fortitude of zombie because they killed the whole encounter, but the one way faster than I thought they would. After the one kobold lived a fatal blow, they panicked in the most fun and positive way. Most of my prep is very behind the scenes stuff. Mostly who's who, what's where, what's happening while the characters are in a swamp for 3 whole days arguing about which town they need to go to. Now when it comes to game day, I have a basic plan. A few stat blocks and a whole lot of stuff I make up as we go, which I then write down so I remember all the crap I made up later for tweaking and future use. So, I guess my confession would be, I don't really prep much at all. Chances are, if you're interacting with an NPC, they have not existed in any way, shape, or form until the moment a character said, "I go up to the shopkeep," or "Who's in the tavern?" or then likes. I hate DMing. I put a lot of effort into printing minis for my game and my players, and I'll spend a few hours brainstorming. I have a job and a wife. This is about as much time as I can dedicate to try and make the game fun. But I constantly feel behind the curve. Players' constant trying to break the game and having to negotiate seemingly everything is tiring and demoralizing. Every time I have to say, maybe that's not going to work. I get I may not be the best DM from a game management perspective, but it's the only way to get a game going. It's hard to find a DM, it's hard to find a group to mesh with, and let's face it, our community is not necessarily very good at sticking to plans or making them. This man is real for that. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, and for early access, possibly outtakes, make sure to sign up for a membership. You keep the lights on, you keep us flowing, and you keep the waters going. That said, let us know in the comments below what's your weird DM confession. We love you all. Please be happy out there, know that you matter, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.